My presentation this morning is about the underwater cultural heritage of the Philippines, including World War II shipwrecks. So as a sort of a background, here's a map of Southeast Asia. Some important information related to underwater cultural heritage of the Philippines includes, it is an archipelago composed of, now it's 7,507 islands. It used to be 7,107, but then our mapping agency did another survey last year, and they identified 400 more. So it's now 7,507 islands. And we have a coastline of about 36,289 kilometers, which is the 5th longest in the world. And we have 51 principal river systems, more than 50 lakes. And there is a new discovery in the Philippines right now, which places the earliest human presence is about 67,000 years ago, which is found on the northeastern side of the island of Luzon. So for the beginnings of maritime archaeology in the Philippines, what you see are the photos of the presently National Museum, composed of 3 buildings, 3 main buildings. This is the Museum of Fine Arts Gallery, which houses our contemporary works of art, including paintings and sculptures. At the bottom is the Museum of Anthropology, which houses artifacts from ethnology and archaeology, including underwater archaeology. And this is a new building which will be housing our natural history specimens. So this is the National Museum of Natural History, and it will open sometime later this year. So the earliest shipwreck investigation occurred in 1967, and this was published in a newspaper which stated that there was looting of shipwrecks of galleons somewhere in the south of Luzon. However, it was just a newspaper report. So through the laws, Republic Act 4846 and Presidential Decree 374, the National Museum was mandated as the government agency responsible for the protection and preservation of the country's cultural properties, and also the archaeological research. So the Underwater Archaeology Unit was created in 1979. This was after some personnel attended training in Thailand for underwater archaeology. But at that time, there were no archaeologists, so they were just people from different backgrounds, from zoology and even from engineering, who did diving courses. So in 1988, the UAU, or the unit, was renamed Underwater Archaeology Section. So this was because archaeology is separated from the anthropology division. It used to be archaeology is part of the anthropology division, and then they created a new archaeology division. So the unit was renamed Underwater Archaeology Section. So last year, the UAS, the section, was converted into the new Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division. So far, we have 3 researchers and about 4 technicians for the entire Philippines. Now, it will be more than 20 people for the entire division with our own budget, which is a very, very good news for us. So this is just an overview of the sites that were worked on over the years by the Underwater Archaeology Unit, Underwater Archaeology Section, and the new Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division. So as you can see, most of the projects are centered on the western side, not so much on the eastern side. And the sites range from the 8th century until the 19th century. So what I will show you is just some examples of what we have in terms of underwater cultural heritage, which up to now is mostly composed of shipwreck research. So the Butuan boats, which is actually a symbol of our, as a maritime nation of the Philippines, have been found in 1976 in Butuan City, here, which is northeast of the island of Mindanao. And it is found in a very small barangay here. Shipwrecks are here. And they were found under an old river. So it's not underwater when they found it. It was under mud, mostly mud. So an archaeology field school was conducted in the 1970s and 1980s, of course, which the photos you can see. And these are very important ships because it's very old and it has a very distinct shipbuilding construction technique. So now, some of them are exhibited at the Butuan National Museum, Regional National Museum, and also at the National Museum in Manila. So the Butuan boats are actually plank built, meaning they're built with planks. They also use dowels to fasten the planks. The dowels are here. So this is the dowel. So the dowels are used to join the planks. And also lash lug. So this is the lash lug, which also like fastens the frames. So this one here. So it's quite significant. It's the earliest evidence so far of what we have in terms of boats in the Philippines. So in 2012, they did another excavation and discovered a huge Butuan boat. So it used to be, this one was in the 1970s, it was an approximate size, about 8 to 10 meters. And the one that was discovered in 2012 is about this size, more than 20 meters. So they actually excavated this because this was already identified in the early 80s, and then they found the bigger one. So there's the Butuan boats were previously identified to have a date of 320 AD and also 13th century AD, which is a little, it's not accurate because at that time they weren't sure. The methodology was not perfect. So they did a redating of the site. So C14 accelerated spectrometry analysis of the Butuan boats by Dr. Lexina, who recently finished her PhD in Australia, revealed a 10th century dates for boat 1, 8th and 9th century dates for boat 2, and 9th century dates for boats 5 and 9. So this is more or less a more accurate dating of the Butuan boats. So the next one we have is the Santa Cruz Shipwreck, which is dated to the 1488 to 1505 CE. This was found 10 nautical miles off the shores of Santa Cruz, Zambales, on the western side of Luzon, at the height of looting in March. I was fortunately part of the team that excavated this. And during that time, when we first got to the site, there were maybe about 20 bangkas with all the hookah divers, improvised hookah divers who were taking plates, going up, going down, and this is 32 meters. After the excavation, we learned that I think more than 10 hookah divers died working on that project. So it was stopped, of course. So we excavated it from July 4 to September 7, 2000, in coordination with the private group FEFNA. So these are just some of the snapshots of the excavation of the site. So here you have excavation of in situ, meaning it was found where it was, of most of the artifacts in the lower hull, and recording of the sites, as well as transport and lifting of the materials recovered. And these are also snapshots of the ship itself. So you see here, it's the bow. There are bulkheads and there are metal cast pads, or we call it cooking woks for cooking. And different bulkheads having different types of materials, which is actually a very good thing for archaeologists for interpretation. And again, another snapshot of different kinds of bowls and plates in one place. And some blue and white dishes along with stoneware jars. So all in all, well, not really all in all, because before we accessioned the site, we recovered 200 sacks of broken pieces. This was destroyed by the looters. So we had to take that out before we can start systematic excavation. So for the accession numbers, we recovered 14,965 pieces, of which more than 8,000 pieces are intact. And majority of the cargo were blue and white porcelain, celadon, and stoneware storage jars. Probably 95% of these are Chinese tradeware ceramics, and some pieces of Vietnamese, some Thai, and some Burmese. So just to show you the variety of materials that were recovered from the site, you have very common dishes, bowls, teacups, as well as exotic shapes like these are pen boxes, and these are pouring vessels here. As well as saladons or greenwares, mostly from China. And also various storage jars from China, from Vietnam, from Thailand, Vietnam here, this one Thailand and Thailand. So non-ceramic items include just 3 pieces of Chinese copper coins, beads. There are tin ingots in its raw form, bronze or brass bangles. These are actually very interesting because it was found in some of the burials in the Philippines. And the archaeologists say that the more bangles you have or the bracelets you have, it denotes higher position in a society. And some stone rollers. And this is a lacquerware, which until now I don't know. And some a short gun, bronze gongs, as well as glass bracelets, which I thought initially was a jade, but it's glass. So this is after the recording of the shipwreck. This is a computer-generated shipwreck image of the site. So the ship is actually classified as a hybrid vessel called a South China Sea tradition vessel, which incorporates Chinese shipbuilding tradition, as you see here in the bulkheads, as well as using the use of dowels to fasten the planks, which is the Southeast Asian tradition among others. So next we go to Manila Galleon, the more famous Manila Galleon that was excavated in the Philippines, the San Diego Shipwreck, which sank in December 14, 1600. So it was a Spanish naus or a trade vessel converted into a warship that sank during the engagement of the Dutch ship Mauritius. So this was the first engagement between the Spanish and the Dutch in Philippine waters. So it was found 1 kilometer off Fortune Island in Batangas, here in red. So excavation activities were carried out by the National Museum of the Philippines and a private group worldwide first in 1992 and 1993. So just some snapshots of the excavations. It was found in deep waters, more than 50 meters, so they had to use submersibles for supervision of the site, as well as like more technical divers. And recovery of the materials. So at the end, there were more than 34,000 archaeological objects recovered. So this is the plan of the site, as well as snapshots of the excavation activities. And it includes what is termed as crack wares that was produced during the reign of Chinese Emperor Wanli during the 1573 to 1620 CE. So really exquisite pieces, because at that time, the San Diego carried nobility, Spanish nobility, because they were so excited to join the fray, because this was their chance to defeat the Dutch. So a lot of them came from wealthy families, but are not seamen, and they are not even, military men. So there were a lot of casualties at that time. So also includes different types of stoneware jars. These are called the dragon jars from China. These are also storage jars from China. Spanish olive jars, jars from Burma, and jars from Thailand. And non-ceramic items include metals, Spanish pieces of 8, glasswares, religious items, as well as navigational items. So, for a long time, World War II shipwrecks was not in the domain of the National Museum. This changed in, I think, in 2008 or 2009, when there was a new law, the RA 10066, that stipulated that UCH composed of 50 years and older. It used to be 100 years and older. So now, the jurisdiction of the World War II shipwrecks transferred from the Coast Guard to the National Museum. And the Coast Guard mostly issues permits for salvage, for metal salvage. So a lot of World War II shipwrecks have disappeared over the years because of this. But they are also significant to the Filipinos because they are still part of living memory of the Filipinos and many others involved in the war. And right now, there are many World War II wrecks that are popular dive sites. So again, this needs to be managed. So, because of this, we wanted to establish a framework on how to manage shipwrecks. So, we selected one World War II shipwreck in Subic Bay, which is very accessible from the Philippines and which is very protected because this used to be a US naval base. So here, this is Subic Bay, and we wanted to do USS New York, which is here. So the results, the planned results will help in creating a framework for the long-term monitoring, management, and preservation historically of significant submerged World War II wrecks, particularly dive sites in Philippine waters. So as sort of background, this is the USS New York. And this is specifications of the USS New York with length of 170 meters and beam of 19.8 meters. And the ship was scuttled in December 1941 while in Subic Bay to avoid capture by attacking Japanese forces. So the wreck currently remains relatively intact but not for long and lies on a silty seabed at a depth of 18 to 27 meters. So it's mostly accessible to all kinds of divers, although it's very challenging to do technical diving because a lot of technical divers have already died because it's quite murky, and when you go inside, some of them don't come back, or they come back but dead. So another one is the Romblon World War II shipwreck investigation that we did a few years ago. The wreck was believed to be the World War II shipwreck Dogumaru that was sunk by an American aircraft USS Intrepid in October 21, 1944, off the shores of Dokwan Island in Romblon. So this is the Romblon Island here, and the wreck was found there. It was interesting because when we investigated the site, we were using the mostly very common outriggered pump boats in the Philippines. We found this raft floating over the site, and this turned out to be a salvor who's currently taking metals at the wreck. So this is the wreck. It's around 45 meters in water. It's quite murky, and you see here the plastic drums that they attach to metals. So they cut the metals, so the drums will let the metal float to the surface. So they said 1 year ago there was a superstructure, but when we went there, it was just a lower hull, as you can see here. And there are a lot of materials still in that wreck, especially tires and lots of shoes. Although we haven't really been able to make research on it because we had a problem with the salvors, because he said he had a permit from the local government. So we tried to sort it out, but then he died. So we're trying to come back very soon. So some concluding remarks include research and concerns about maritime archaeology and our underwater cultural heritage is now under the jurisdiction of the National Museum. The maritime archaeological examples that I've shown, such as the Butuan boats, the Santa Cruz, as well as San Diego shipwrecks, show the richness and significance of the country's underwater cultural heritage. And since 2009, research and management of World War II shipwrecks have been transferred to the National Museum. And I think not only the Philippines, but almost everywhere in the world, UCH in general, and particularly World War II shipwrecks are highly threatened, as I've shown. So finally, there is a need to enhance public awareness and to tap other stakeholders that would help in the preservation of UCH. And I think this is also part of what we're doing here, is to raise public awareness. So not only with the students, but also for the general public. Thank you.